You're listening to The Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Practical Wealth Show. We're going to do a video today. And so we just did a call with Bruce Mack from the Platinum Financing Group. And so the last call, we went into the, creating like a bulletproof asset protection. But he's got a whole other side to his business that we started talking about. I said, wait, all right, let's do this in a video because he's got some really cool things to teach you. And so if you're here listening to the audio on YouTube, you'll be able to go here and see this video. So if you haven't seen it, let me just give Bruce a quick introduction. Bruce Mack is the owner and founder of the Platinum Financing Group, and knows that all options and asset protection programs are the perfect solution for business owners to complete financial freedom. So, you want to get access to capital. I heard Robert Kiyosaki say that debt and money are the same. So people say they want to get out of debt, you really mean you want to get out of money, right? So you want to be able to use other people's money. And so he's a licensed financial advisor. He's a former owner and of a bonded credit repair company. And Bruce empowers small business growth through custom funding options, including lines of credit, corporate credit building program. And he's, we talked about this last week, educating people on asset protection. But today we're going to cover credit, getting access to capital, other people's money on personal and business credit. Bruce, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Curtis. It's a pleasure to be here. Curtis, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I really wanted to come at this, guys, from a little bit different perspective today. So what I've done is I've put together a slide deck, and we're going to go into why getting credit, why credit is so important, how credit actually works, and I'll make a guarantee before I start. And the guarantee is this: I guarantee to each and every one of you who is watching this and or listening to this that you will learn some new important facts that are practical and that you can plug into how you're conducting yourself from a credit standpoint and a credit worthiness standpoint. And that in and of itself is priceless, because what's one of our most prized possessions that we own? Some people would say gold, other people would say silver, other people would say their Bitcoin collection. To me, I think one of the prized possessions that we all own is our FICO score. And we want it to be the best that it possibly can. And I'm going to show you, again, how to get from where you are to where you want to go. Some of you are already where you want to go, and that's great. I'm going to show you how to stay there. So it doesn't matter where you are. We're going to cover a lot of these things. We're also going to talk about some different types of programs that you can involve yourself with should you want funding. Well, why would you want funding? The short and simple of it is, I always say that oftentimes there's too much month, not enough money, and you get caught short. And we will also talk about how so many small businesses, they fail because of one Achilles heel, and that is they just don't have enough funding to take them where they need to go. Even if they're successful, they can't get to that next level.
Right.
So we'll talk about some funding options for you, and we're going to talk about different types of funding options, both from a personal credit, or what I call SSN, Social Security number standpoint, and from an EIN, from an employer identification basis, where you can be plugging in. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to get lots of credit and no PG? And PG, for those of you who may not know, I'm talking about no personal guarantee. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's roll right into this. First slide says, what's leverage? Well, leverage is the strategy of using borrowed money to increase the return on an investment. If the return of the total value invested, your own cash plus borrowed funds, is higher than the interest that you pay on the borrowed funds, you can make a significant profit on the arbitrage. Well, isn't that what real estate investors do every day? Isn't that what the Trumps and the Rockefellers and so many of these guys did? They took X amount of money, but they put it to work, and they were able to leverage that so that the spread that they were able to get on that equated to massive amounts of profit. Mm-hmm. Cash flow. Well, according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months. Kind of a scary and staggering statistic. And a whopping 80% crash and burn. The primary reason businesses fail is they simply run out of cash. A U.S. bank study showed that 82% of businesses fail are due to poor cash management. Business capital. Well, there are many different types of business capital that are out there, especially these days. And let's talk about what the non-traditional sources are. Well, there's venture capital. That's certainly one way to get money. And usually if you're doing VC or venture capital, you're sharing, and you're usually doing what's called an equity play, meaning that you're going to give away a percent of your business to the investor, or percentages of your business to investors, if there's numbers of them, to entice them to play, along with possible additional capital paybacks, so on and so forth. That usually means that there's going to be a equity play that's involved. Investment companies. There's many investment companies that are out there that potentially could fund a deal. Crowdfunding. There's a number, if you just Google the word crowdfunding, there's a number of different platforms that are out there that could be the panacea to get you the funding that you're looking for. But I urge you that you want to try and maybe even watch some of these guys on YouTube on what they've done to come up with a compelling offer that is very different than what has been out there before, because it's the new, it's the unique, it's the different that people want to get in, that people want to invest in, and it's also the you that they want to invest in. So if you do not have a good game plan and you do not have a very logical path and plan to success, likely your crowdfunding program will not pan out. So this is something you need to be extremely strategic with. Invoice financing. Well, you can even, again, Google them. There are invoice financing companies that are out there. There are a number of them, and sometimes they'll take anywhere from 2 to 5 to 20% of what your invoices is to pay you up front before they're due. You may be on a 30, a 60, a 90-day collections or collectible cycle, and this could help by giving you the cash infusion that's needed. They're also known as companies that do this called factors or factoring companies. So again, that's just another Google term that you could use. Incubator.
So they're the same. I was looking at that going, I thought that's what factoring was. Is there a difference?
No. Well, you could just Google invoice financing, and or you could Google factoring or invoice financing factoring. I mean, you can try different strings and you'll come up with different stuff.
Got it. Okay.
You're swimming in the same tank when you're talking about invoice financing. Factoring is absolutely the how can I say it, the more professional term, or the one that the actual providers go by. They're likely going to be a factorer, but they could be knowing themselves and marketing themselves as an invoice financing company as well.
Got it.
Okay. Incubator programs. Again, there are a number of them, and in many cities, you may want to look on your Meetup and or other places and tie in investment meetings, startup meetings, into your meetup groups and or incubator. These are all pretty much the same, and there's many, and this is very similar and strategy as to using potentially crowdfunding. But this is a place where you can meet and greet. Oftentimes at some of these meetings, you're going to meet a investor type who's looking for people like you, and you're going to be meeting up with other types that are also looking for funds for funding. And an idea exchange is always a good thing. Factoring, again, it's a byproduct of invoice financing. Peer-to-peer lending, which is when you get online and you see a company and they say apply online. That's really what we mean by peer-to-peer lending. We actually have a better strategy than you just getting online, one that's going to save you from getting a lot of what we call unnecessary hard inquiries. And again, I'll touch on that in the next couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. And then investors, which again is very similar to venture capital, but depending upon who the angel is, could be a family member or a friend, you may not need to have your proverbial ducks in as much of a row, having white papers and highly documented returns and strategies and a complete full-blown business plan and so on and so forth. So these are all non-traditional sources. Now let's talk about some traditional sources, banks and SBAs. SBAs stand for, in case you haven't heard the acronym before, stand for Small Business Association. These usually take several months, need to be highly documented, mm-hmm. absolutely require a well done, what I call well-baked business plan. Mm-hmm. And even if you get what's called a streamlined SBA, they still are, how can I say it? They are a load to get done, but you can get great rates. However, I will tell you that don't be surprised, because if you do get approved and you do own a house, they will cross-collateralize with your house. So that's pretty much a given that they will want to put UCC filings against equipment and other lienable assets that you may have, and collateralize by taking a position on the house that they can foreclose if you don't pay it back.
And so you don't want to do that because if you go back to your earlier slide, what percentage of businesses fail, and you don't want to guarantee it with your house.
You said it. It can be a very scary proposition.
Yeah.
And if it's the last thing and it's the only thing, I'm certainly not suggesting that you do it, but it is something that you might consider. The rates on SBA loans, if you can qualify, the attractive piece there is that they are very, very good rates. Mm-hmm. You want to check on the front end if you're even thinking about exploring an SBA with whoever the SBA administrator is that you want to go to, or you can give us a call because we do SBAs as well. Is there going to be a collateralization demand at the end of the rainbow? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, FICO stands for Fair Isaacs Company. They're a company out of Northern California, and they're the ones that we all know that drives and reports what our credit bureau scores are. And there are several major credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And depending upon where you are in the country, different creditors quite literally may pull from different bureaus because they feel they're kind of regionalized and sectionalized. So if you're going for a Bank of America credit card, let's just say, and you live on the East Coast, they're going to use a different bureau much more likely when they pull to get for an approval or a decline than they would on the West Coast. So that's just a little nuance for you. So not all creditors pull from the same repositories, and not all scores are the same. Matter of fact, believe it or not, your FICO floats on a daily basis. It actually goes up and goes down. And why would that be? Well, there's a number of reasons, but look at it this way. As credit updates move, as different, let's say you've got a Macy's card, and you've got a B of A card, you got a this card, and you got a that card, and you have a car loan, and you have a home loan, and you've got all these different things that all factor into your score. And utilization, which we will talk about in a moment, certainly fluctuates your FICO. As these different repositories, or these different creditors, I should say, report on a monthly basis, that's going to have an effect on your score. So one may report today, and another one may report tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And this is part of that floating effect.
Right.
Also, different types of scoring models out there that you may not be aware of. And when you get a report from a third party, your FICO is likely a FACO. Now, what do I mean by that? That means that all these third-party providers are reporting a FACO score. It's usually done on different modeling than a FICO. And please understand that there's multiple different FICO models out there and other credit scoring models out there that different creditors use. For instance, if I can assure you, if you were going for a mortgage today and they pulled a bureau, or they pulled a tri-merge report on your bureaus, that's going to be geared for mortgage industry. And that score, or those scores, the 3 scores that you're going to get, will be very, very different than the scores that you would be getting if you went to a car dealer and they showed you the report. Because car dealers use car dealer type of reports that are geared for car dealers. Consumer financing, i.e. credit cards, very different type of model. And then there's also different other types of reporting models called like your Vantage score. So it's not all about FICO. It's about where you're going, how you're getting it, and how it's being reported, and what the utilization is that absolutely factors into the equation. But generally speaking, credit scores, depending upon the model, go from 350 to 900 plus.
Okay.
And let's talk about this credit wheel. Okay. And these are usually very static, regardless how the score was derived. These percentages, they're pretty much, they transcend on all platforms. Payment history, 35%. Amounts owed, 30%. Then you've got new credit for 10%, length of credit history for 15%, and then that purple one, types of credit used. So let's kind of break a little bit of this down. Let's talk about payment history. Well, this is when, if you have 30-day lates, that's going to affect you adversely. And likewise, if you've got all R1s and all good payment history, then that's going to be a real big plus for you. Mm-hmm. We can talk, well, actually, maybe now's a good time to mention this. I used to own a licensed and bonded credit repair company, so I'm pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, and I would put my background up against any of the other people that are in the field for knowing strategies and different ways to do things and so on and so forth. Not do credit repair. This is something that we referred out, but we also work with people who are the top professionals that I've seen. And one of the things that may become an action item for you when you're done watching this today is, you know what, I want to take responsibility for what's going on. I want to work on this stuff. I now see the importance of this stuff. And should you wish to, and or need to get into credit repair, then please, trying to do it yourself might not be the best thing. It's trying to do credit repair is sort of like trying to use your right hand to do surgery on your left arm. Might not turn out the way you want things to turn out. And actually, when people start reading books and doing letter campaigns and they're sending out the wrong letters to the right people, and they're not sending them out to creditors, or they are sending them out to collection agencies, I'll give you some examples. They're making things worse. For instance, here's one that you may or may not know. One of the things that people do consistently to try and do their own credit triage and or what I would call dummy credit repair companies who really don't know what the heck they're doing. One of the things that I see that drives me nuts is having an old collections account, one that's maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. Different states have different statutes of limitations. And it's likely most of the old collections that you may have to fall off, depending upon the state that you live in, within 4 to 6 years. So if you've got a 5-year-old or 5.5-year-old collection, and you enter into a payment arrangement and or you even dispute that in and of itself, or making a payment of $1 because, well, you thought that was a good idea, that will what's called re-age the account. Likely, it might be a better idea not even to dispute that and let it fall off, because it might and likely does not have much of a negative effect on your record. So these are the types of decisions that need to be made as to how you're going to go out and actually effectually be able to dispute and move your report in a north direction. Another one, a common mistake that I see all the time is, well, I want to get rid of all my inquiries. These hard inquiries are killing me. Well, first of all, an inquiry is going to be a 3 to 5 point event. It's not the end of the world, but multiple inquiries is certainly, they can add up. And inquiries have to be removed from your credit report within 2 years by the statutes. And they usually only have a negative FICO effect. The most pronounced effect is within the first 6 months. After that, they start trailing off precipitously. But my point is this. The neophyte credit repair person is going to say, oh, yeah, I can get rid of the inquiries. And likely they can. But the byproduct of that is, if you're disputing on open lines of credit that you have, most specifically credit cards, I've seen on a number of occasions that the creditor will shut down that credit line. So just the act of trying to remove the inquiry with your B of A could likely get that B of A card to be closed.
Wow.
So again, there's ways to do things. There's ways to look at things. There's a lot of strategy, thought, preparation that goes into the act of doing credit triage to be able to get the ultimate desired effect, which is to, of course, get you the highest FICO. There's a number of other strategies, and we'll talk about some of these things as we move forward. But amounts owed, 30%, that's a big one. You have a lot of control over that because by paying your balances down and keeping each creditor at 30% or less will not adversely affect your credit. But here's a tip, and it's a big tip. If you have business credit cards, and some of you do, and the ones that don't, we can talk about getting you business credit cards while we're on the webinar today. All business cards, with one exception, I've got some great news for you. They do not report on your FICO. Matter of fact, I'll give you even more news. The one creditor that does report on your FICO is Capital One. If you have a business credit card and it's a Capital One, you mark my words, it will show on your FICO, on your score, on your bureaus that you pull. But every other one won't. So what's the strategy? It's really simple. Use your business credit cards. If you want to go over that 30%, you can go 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. And that's where you want to keep the majority of your charges and keep your personal cards, if possible, at 30% or less, and you'll be able to maximize your credit score. So that one tip and technique, so many of you could utilize and will make a huge difference.
Yes, that's major. And I just got a Cap One business credit card, and I was when you're saying that, I was like, all right, I have some stuff on the other card. I need to pay that down and just use the business card, but now I need a different company.
You do.
Unfortunately,
Capital One is the one card that still reports on your FICO. So
I was like, don't say Capital One. Don't say Capital One. Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to say Capital One.
Right.
Now, there's another strategy that a lot of you guys.
Let me jump in there for a second, because it's one of the things I talk about. I said, listen, bad credit is a result of something, right? And so a lot of the 2/3 of the score, payment history and amounts owed, or what I call debt ratio, are things that you control, which are a byproduct of really what we teach our clients is good cash flow management, so that you're not buying things that you can't afford. So you carry, over 30% of your that you have to carry. That a lot of times that means you can't afford the thing that you're trying to get. And so if you can manage that, even if you're helping somebody fix your credit, but you still can't control those two parts, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, but with somebody trying to help you.
Couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. And keeping that balance, I'll give you another tip, Guy. And the tip is this. We were talking about that 30% threshold. So many of us only keep in our wallet our favorite affinity card, the one that's going to give us those air miles so that we can take off and go to Europe or China or wherever the heck we want to go, or that cash back card, whatever. But understand, if you're pounding everything onto that one card, when you've got two other cards that you could be spreading things across evenly so that you're staying at 30% straight across the board, you may be getting the rewards, but the real reward, which is the higher FICO, is one that you're punishing yourself with, because you have spiked that one card up to 60, 70, 80, 90% when it doesn't need to be, because you could have spread those charges out. Now, one of the things, this always changes on a 30-day basis, because, of course, cards report on 30-day cycles. But one of the things that people don't think about oftentimes is they don't do this balancing, and then all of a sudden their card takes a dump, and now they got to go in and they want to finance for a new car. And where they get crucified is then that they end up, because they didn't what I call load balance and keep things even, so that they could get what's called A-tier credit paper when they go and get their car on their lease or their car payment. Now they're getting into subprime, and they're going to get completely, again, crucified on the rate. So oftentimes we don't pre-plan, and the best way to pre-plan is to keep things in a stabilized fashion and keep your charges as equally as you possibly can against your card usage, so that everything is at 30% or less. So when that unexpected situation comes up, or you want to go out and you want to do furniture shopping right now, or whatever it is that you want to get, that you're not going to get less than A paper rates because of that load imbalancing. Okay? Let's talk about some more don'ts. Okay? Let's talk about, don't pay with cash, pay with credit. Now, that sounds so stupid, but it makes so much sense. Some of the biggest challenged people that I know that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, they come to me and they have stinky FICOs because they just don't have a credit history. A credit history can easily be established within 18 months. So if you don't worry. We can get you from where you are to where you want to go. But one of the things that I always tell people is use your credit cards. And believe you me, your credit card issuers are looking at you using your credit cards. And it's a great way to keep your records from a tax perspective. So using them rather than abusing them is always a good thing. Mm-hmm. Don't pay off the entire credit card balances. Now, I know that sounds completely counter to everything that you've been told, but you actually get penalized on your scores from FICO or Vantage or whoever it is when you pay off continually your credit card balances to zero. I'm not saying keep a large balance. That's not a good idea. But keep it at the $30 balance. That's a good idea. It's nominal in the terms of interest, and it actually will be rewarding to you in the terms of you're getting some additional increased scores on your FICO.
That's a really good tip. I mean, they don't really want you to pay it off because they're not making any money. So you need to let them make a little bit of money.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
You know what it's called in the industry? If you pay off your balances perennially every month, you're called a credit deadbeat.
Wow.
I mean, come
that's
on.
Funny. Yeah.
It's crazy that's the way.
I mean, it's responsible, but you've got to learn how to play the credit game, and so that's a really good tip. I mean, because $10, $30. Let me go back. So when you pay cash, guys, I want you to have the cash, but you're using the card for convenience. And then when you get the bill, you pay the majority of it off and leave that $10 to $30 balance. Okay. So that you don't go crazy. All right. So just to make sure we throw some common sense in there. All right.
Don't keep applying. When you get turn downs, it creates more inquiries. Well, I mean, that sounds like such a duh, but people think, well, I didn't get approved here, so let me try there, and let me try here, and let me try there. Now they got 4 inquiries where there's likely a valid reason that you didn't get approved, and let's cure the problem instead of exacerbating it is really what.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't close old credit cards and store cards. One of the biggest mistakes I see people doing. Oh my gosh, I have 12 cards. I never used the 8 of them. I'm going to close them all. Now, if you're going to close cards, guys, the first thing I'm going to tell you is never, ever, never close more than 1 card at a time. That will hurt you because think about it. When you close a card, what are you doing? You're taking away your credit history. You're taking away your credit amount that has been given to you. Okay? That starts to shrink. So never close your oldest cards, even if you don't use them. And oh, by the way, I want you to start using them because you never want to get the dreaded close by creditor. So your oldest cards create that history. It may not be the card that you love. It might have the highest APR and no affinities, but don't close it. If you are going to close a card, have it be a newer card that will not affect that history, and never close more than 1 card at a time, and have at least 60 days between closing cards so it will not again adversely affect your FICO, because you could rock your world if you do it wrong. Stop using old cards to avoid creditors closing, or don't stop using old cards to avoid creditors using them. Well, we already covered that. That oldest card that you never use, drag it back out, stick it in your wallet, and just keep a little diary or a spreadsheet. Use it once a quarter. I'm not saying use it every day. Doesn't need to be your go-to card, but fill up a tank of gas, buy a meal, what have you, once every quarter, so you're in the system, you're staying active, and they won't close that card. Don't ever use a debt consolidator to lower your balances. That that will really mess you up. And most of these debt consolidators the first thing that they'll tell you is that you have to stop paying your bills. Well, come on, apply sense and logic to that. You're going to start racking up 30, 60, 90 day, and they won't even start to negotiate with your existing creditors until you're at least 90 days late. And by then your credit is torched. And then they're going to go, then the idea is that they're going to negotiate with them for paying it off. However, during that time, it's usually a year or longer that you're to the debt consolidator because A, they're building up a stipend of cash to be able to make the negotiation. If they don't have enough of a stipend of cash, then they can't even do the negotiation. And oh, by the way, they're also building up and taking a stipend of the cash that you're giving them, a percentage of that, and putting it where into their bank account.
Their bank account, right?
That's how they make their money. So my suggestion is, if you need to negotiate with a creditor and there's no other way, that you do it on your own. And if you're going to do it, you do it where you likely wait until you have enough money to pay them off. And we'll talk about how to pay them off in a moment. But if you're going to negotiate, that you negotiate with them for less than the full balance, and that you negotiate with them that they're going to remove the trade line from your credit report. There will be adverse reporting on your credit report. Don't even think about negotiating with them and having that be able to happen unless you're willing to go somewhere around 45% of the debt. Even though you could have potentially with some creditors, if you string them out long enough, get a negotiation for 20. But you're never going to get them to remove the trade line. And removing the trade line means to remove all credit reporting of this trade line from all credit reporting bureaus and all credit reporting agencies. If you make that deal with them on the front end, and that's not a verbal deal, that's a deal that you make by having them send you a confirmation, a confirmation email, if nothing else, from the company. Mm-hmm. If they will do that, then doing a negotiation might be a way to help mitigate and get you out of the financial hot water that you got into. Other than that, debt consolidators, again, it puts you on a downward spiral. Credit counseling is a debt consolidation, make no mistake. And these are looked at from a credit perspective at the same level that a bankruptcy is looked at. Frankly, and I'm not here to tell you what to do, you may qualify if you make less than the state median income. If you make less than the state median income, you might qualify for a bankruptcy, Chapter 7, not an 11. And a Chapter 7, within 18 months, you can reestablish. Think about it. If you go into debt consolidation and or credit counseling, these are usually 3-4 year programs. So you're out, and then you still have. You cannot go back to likely to those creditors and ask them to reissue or give you new credit because they keep records. So again, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to give you some different suggestions that you might not have thought of previously to this, because for each action, there, of course, is a consequence.
Yeah, it's funny that you say the debt consolidators. People ask me, well, I want to consolidate, and I'll look at their stuff, and it's not that bad. They're just stressed out. And I said, they will make it worse. I mean, they really haven't. I was working with a person, and it's like, oh, I'm in debt, and and I looked at the stuff, and they had about $500,000 in debt, but they had like $1.5 million in assets, and then what they and it was like on rental properties and stuff. I said, so I looked at the debt, it was some student loans, but they had like $19,000 of credit card debt. I was like, you're not in debt, you have debt. And, so you get stressed out about the wrong stuff, but then you want to go to somebody to consolidate, And with what you just told them, I mean, you can make it. That's like pouring gasoline on a fire in terms of your FICO score.
They are absolutely torturing themselves if they do this, and it's not going to and they're in for a long time of being in credit hell purgatory. It's an unfortunate circumstance. You know, you can go to places, Curtis, and for your students that are out here, there are different places you can go to or different creditors you can go to, and you can talk about reducing the minimum payment for a period of time, or even putting in a payment program. American Express is a good one for this. American Express bills are due when? Every 30 days. How much? The entire balance, because most of their cards are not credit cards. They are cards that they have to be paid off at the end of the cycle. Otherwise, you'll get a late pay, and of course, they'll cut you off. But if you were to go to American Express before you're late, if you can't make the payment, American Express is one of the places that most of the time they will put you on a payment plan, and when discussed, they will not report. Again, you got to get it in writing. If I do this, will you do that? Will you put in writing that you will not report because I'm going to go on a payment plan, which I really appreciate because I have every intention. I just had too much month and not enough funding. So you're much better off trying to negotiate these things directly rather than taking a third party, because they're going to take a huge cut in the first place. Okay? Don't pay collections without negotiating for a pay for delete letter. Whether it's with a third-party collector or whomever, and likely it is at that particular point, and it says collections, and it's assigned out to whoever the collection agency is, never admit that you deserved the late pay. Well, I know I was late. Never. Somehow you didn't receive the money. That you can go that way, and somehow you show it as a late pay on my record. But if that is the case and you want to get rid of it, the smart money is to just say, look, I've got the money. I'm willing to send it all in, cashier's check, money order, what have you. But I definitely want the credit line to be erased from all credit reporting agencies. Please send me out an email to that effect, and I can have this thing paid within the next 24 to 48 hours. Again, be ready if you're going to try to negotiate for pay for delete scenario, that you have your pay for delete letter emailed to you and that you're ready to back it up by paying them. If you're not, and don't even bother making the phone call. Okay? Don't pay a collection without deleting it from your credit report. It will re-age the entire account, but regardless, by deleting the collection or not, 1-year-old collections should still be paid. Couldn't agree with that more. Let's talk about some dues. You can get your rent reported. People aren't aware of this. One of them, Rental Karma, you might want to write that down, Rental Karma. And another one would be Rent Reporters. Those are two companies that will report your rent. And that will help your FICO if you've got what we call a very thin profile. You can also, which I would highly suggest that you do, you want to write this down, so get your pencil ready. You want to have an ongoing monthly credit report to be able to do what I call self-monitor what's going on. The best one that's out there is IDIQ, and I have a special link that'll give you a reduction and give you an increase in services because we work very closely with them. If you'll go to bit.ly, and that's bit.ly/show my report. And that's not showmyreport.com, it's show my report. And again, I'll repeat that. That's bit.ly/show my report. Now, why would I want you to pay $20 a month when you can get a free report from Credit Karma, right? And you can get a free report from Credit Karma. Well, there's a lot of reasons. Well, let's start with the fact that Credit Karma only gives you a 2-bureau report. And that that third bureau might have derogatories on there, which you'll never have access to utilizing Credit Karma. Also, one of the biggest problems that we all know that's out there today is getting credit alerts. And you only get credit alerts from Credit Karma sporadically. With the reporting that I've got set up with IDIQ, they send you, if you apply for any credit on any bureau, you'll get an instant notification. What do fraudsters do when they get your credit information? They start to do little tests and apply for credit in your name, and they get the card, what have you. So you can stop the identity theft cold in its tracks before it gets completely out of control just by having those credit alerts. They also have a credit simulator, which is a good thing because it will show you if this, then that technology. You know, if I did this, it would increase my score by that. If I do this, it'll do this to my score. Very, very important. It's very useful. Again, I would highly encourage you to go to bit.ly/show my report and always have your report and always look at it once a month. It will automatically update once a month, and there will be no additional charge for getting that auto update. Report your utility bills. That's another thing that you can do is get your utility bills reported. And you can look online for how to report my utility bills to my credit profile. Add authorized users. Now that can be a great way to go. I've seen people who've had low 600 FICOs get well over the 700 just by getting authorized user. Now, who's a likely authorized user? It's anyone that you know, family or friend, that will add you to their credit card. And if they call in and they get you to be added, they don't have to worry because they cannot get a credit card issued to them. So they're not worried that you're going to start running up the tab. This is strictly a strategy to get their credit reported. Now, the flip side of that is if you're going to use an authorized user, you need to make sure that that person never is going to go over 30% utilization on that card. Because I can tell you, we've seen it on so many occasions, you get added as an authorized user, and that could absolutely be a nightmare. Now, the good news is you can always drop yourself as an authorized user or be dropped within and can be off within 30 days. But I caution you, if you do add authorized users, that you do have a sit-down discussion with them of what they're going to be doing in terms of card utilization going forward. There are, and we have the ability to get you authorized users if that's something you're interested in. There is, of course, a fee for that. That's something that could be discussed at a later date if that's of need for you. Apply for business credit cards. Well, we talked about why that's a great thing, because business credit cards, but with one exception, they don't even report on your FICO. So it's a great way to be able to give you a much higher ceiling on utilization. Make sure to have a good mix of credit. Well, the ideal mix of credit is both revolving and installment credit. Always a good idea. Get rid of derogatories by getting professional credit repair and somebody that's been vetted out, not just somebody who has their shingle out. Apply for secured cards if you have a very low credit score, and question them. Well, if I pledge $500 or $5,000, are you going to show the full $500 or $5,000? Or are you going to show less than that as the credit limit? Oh, by the way, do you have a program that within 6 months or a year with a perfect payment track record that you're going to release those funds back to me? So And, oh, by the way, do you report to all three bureaus, or do you just report to one, or do you report to none? Some of the secured credit cards that are out there that you think are being reported, they don't even report. So you got to vet that out. And, oh, by the way, did you report as a secured card on my credit report or not? So those are the likely questions that you want to get answered. And I, of course, would be sensitive to the APRs, but you're going to pay the balances down anyhow. And then you can use these cards for doing everything. Pay your utility bills, pay your rent, pay your this, pay your that, and start to build up that great history. Apply for a store card. They're easier to get. Some store cards that don't have a Visa or MasterCard logo. Many store cards that are out there have MasterCard and Visa logos out there, and they're just as difficult to get from a credit perspective as if you're going for a MasterCard or a Visa that wasn't for use in a specific store. And many specific store cards that have a MasterCard and Visa logo on them may not be able to be used at Walmart or your grocery store. So you need to find out what the rules of the road are. One of the easier ones to get is Finger Hut, just as a little tip, okay? Credit unions are usually a great place to go if you qualify, and you can become a credit union member, and they have great rates. Also, set up your accounts on auto pay. I cannot stress to you how important that is, because by doing it, you have a provable track record of if there ever was a late pay to getting it reversed, because you can't just say, I put it in the mail, you must not have received it excuse. You can actually have the third party, if it's your bank or whoever it is that's doing the auto pays, you can actually have the record pulled to show your creditor that you couldn't have made a late payment. However, I got to tell you, I've seen people not win in that scenario when the creditor or the bank, let's say you bank at Wells Fargo, and they clearly articulate in the 2-point type when you signed up, if you're doing auto pay, that they need at least 7 to 10 days for the payment to arrive. And let's just say you did the late, or you press the button for the auto pay, or you set up auto pays for 3 days before, and then you go back to try and dispute it. They're not going to back you up. So you need to know what the rules of the road are from the financial institution that's doing the auto pays. And as long as you set up your auto pays in conformity and the money is there that needs to be there from your deposits, then you will end up, if there was a problem, you should be able to rectify the late pay that you get, that you possibly get. Let's talk about funding and how we can help. Funding, I truly believe, is a must for any startup business and or for any business that wants to expand. You need financing for your business, well, because you can promote your business with more marketing if you have more funding to be able to do so. You have more leverage, which we discussed earlier, that arbitrage play. Maybe it's a product, a service, or a good that you're buying at $1 that you're able to resell for $5. That in and of itself is a great arbitrage, correct?
Right.
You'll have more money for your business expansion. And having funding simply means, if nothing else, you have more options when you have the ability to have funding. We have several programs that I'm going to briefly touch on. One of them is our revolving lines of credit program. That's we get people an average of $75,000 on that program, all at 0% APR. It's all unsecured revolving lines for up to 21 months. And we have a reload program with that. So if the average is 15 months, we're getting people, when they go through the program on 2 cycles, up very close to 3 years of 0% APR.
Wow.
And it's a great program. And this program, once we start and we pull the trigger on getting you the revolving lines of credit, it's a 7 to 14 day fund out. So it happens very, very quickly in most cases. Here's I think some of the great upsides. We don't require financials. We don't require tax returns for this program. We don't require a business plan, and there is no collateral. So these are all really, really great pluses for this program. Moving along, we have another program where remember I said you can go online and go peer-to-peer, but the problem with going peer-to-peer is you're only getting one creditor that you're accessing, and if they turn you down, you're done. We happen to have a 25 lender program. So with one soft inquiry, we actually go out and we spider out to 25 different lenders for loans that are anywhere from $1,000 to $50,000, and they come back with pre-approvals. You do not get a hard inquiry until you press the button accept, should you press the button to accept. So with 12 roughly questions answered, all online, and pressing the button, and within 30 to 45 seconds, you potentially can get multiple offers, all with a soft pull, no hard pull, and if you like it and want to move forward. Now, to me, that's a great plus, and it's a much better way than trying to put on a blindfold and pick a potential funder, get a decline, have a hard inquiry, and be no better off than actually worse off than when you started. We do approve people in certain cases with FICOs down as low as 580. Certainly you're not going to get 50,000 if you have a 580, but likely there's a possibility of getting approved, especially when you have, which we will need, provable income, whether it's W-2 stubs or whether it's 1099s. Okay? Now we have our B.
Let me ask you a question on that one. Are those, that one, is that a line or a loan?
These are loans. They're anywhere from 12 months to 60 months in term.
Got it. Okay.
And they start at 4.9% APR and go up from there depending upon what the client's credit score.
But the previous one was a line.
Yes, revolving lines are
Okay.
You don't use them. You're not making monthly payments.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
So we have our BDRA, which is our business line, our business directed retirement account. And it's another way for you to be able to generate usable money for whatever business purpose you want. Now, those of you who have a rollable IRA or 401k, you want to listen up. You may currently have those at a self-directed administrator. Good, because you can roll from there into this program. Or they may be at your old employer and you just left them there and they're managing your money for you. Now, because you left the employer, there's no hold on that and you can move them directly into a BDRA. Or you may currently be working for an employer and the rules of the road are likely you can't touch the money. There is, however, an exception that you might not be aware of. I want to tell you about that. If you, let's just say, are working at Lockheed, but you used to work at General Dynamics, the situation is that the client has the ability to do what's called a carve out. And they can take the money from their previous employer. Let's say it was $50,000, and they can take the money from the previous employer and they can carve that out. The existing employer has no hold over that because you brought it over there, and you can put that directly into the BDRA. So you may have $200,000 over at your existing employer, but $50,000 came from a previous employer, and you can move that tomorrow. Okay. So again, people don't know about that. Now, a business-directed retirement account can be used for any business purpose. You can contribute up to $53,000 annually tax deferred. So this can stay in your account tax deferred. You have the use of the money, and you can defer it until you're 70 and a half, which is when you need to start taking your RMDs. RMDs are your minimum required distributions. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the usual self-dealing that all these self-directed accounts, other than the one we're talking about, they tell you cannot do transactions like real estate transactions inter-family. You can't do a transaction with your mother, father, sister, brother, whatever. Can't do it. Well, with a BDRA you can, and that's a big plus. Another big plus, I should go back.
Let me ask you a question on that. So if let's say you saw a property and you had a BDRA,
yes,
and you didn't want to buy the property, but you wanted to maybe carve out $25K for the down payment and then finance the rest of it, you could do that with this.
Well, and that's a great question. I was just going to touch on that, and that's such a great question. You can get a loan with a traditional self-directed account, but here's the big I gotcha. Okay, it has to be what's called a non-recourse loan. Mm-hmm. Well, think about it. A non-recourse loan, simply stated, means that you're not personally guaranteeing on the loan. So you can't get without giving. And here's the give. The give is that you're going to give away about 50% of the funding, because they will only approve usually 50% of what a traditional loan would approve. Mm. So now you're going to have to figure out where you're going to find the rest of the funds, because invariably you're coming up short. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, rates for non-recourse loans are traditionally always higher on the APR, because they are a much higher risk loan for the bank. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, to answer your question, all bets are off with a BDRA. If you get a BDRA, you can go out and get a recourse traditional type of loan. How cool is that? Mm-hmm. So you can take some funds from your IRA, and you can get the rest of what you need to make the whole deal fly from going to any traditional recourse lender, and it is not considered to be self-dealing or a prohibited transaction. So this is a great way for people to do real estate deals, for people to get monies for marketing or whatever other reason that they want, and not be pigeonholed into the normal guidelines of a self-directed retirement account. Some of our success stories. These clients, sweethearts, the sure ones, they got $86,500, all at 0% APR within a couple of days. Linda K got $123,900. All these folks are well over the $100,000 plus club. So our program works. We funded tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. We'd love to be able to help your clients out too. There's something else I should speak about. I don't have a slide for it today, but we talked about touching on this, and that's corporate credit. We do have a corporate credit program as well. Corporate credit is what I call EIN credit as opposed to SSN. SSN, Social Security credit, Social Security number credit, and EIN is employer identification number credit. So I do have people who are in bankruptcy who have very large credit lines, credit limits, and credit cards with their corporate credit that they got from our corporate credit program. So it's really done on a tiered basis, where we get you small lines and you buy things like office supplies, And again, we have a large vendor pool, a large vendor list. And then we move you up from there to larger store cards, things like getting cards from Apple, Amazon, so on and so forth, gas cards, with the ultimate goal where we're getting you $2,500, $5,000, $10,000 credit limit credit cards, which of course can be used for anything. Now, one thing I can tell you is that corporate credit program requires no EIN. Matter of fact, we've even taken foreign nationals and gotten them credit. We want them to get some business presence domestically, and that's easily done. And then we get them an IATIN, which is an international EIN. And going back to the original program that we showed you, the 0% APR, one of the things that we are going to do if we strictly do that program is we're going to get you some business cards. And in that program, if you don't have a business currently, that's okay. With us, we will get you a business. You'll have one within 24 hours. We can do the paperwork, and we don't charge for that. That's just one of the things that we do. Mm-hmm. So, guys, if there's any way that we can help, or there's something that I said that resonated with you and you want to move forward with any one of these programs, or see which program you qualify for, and or just have a general discussion of, how much can we get you, type of a scenario, we're delighted to do that. And let's get you a complimentary consultation. And that complimentary consultation can easily be gotten by going to www.platinumfinancing, group. I didn't have that on there. Sorry. platinumfinancing.group.com. So disregard the slide. It's platinumfinancing.group.com. Go there, and on that slide, on that website, you will find a scheduling tool that has an automatic online real-time calendar, so that we can schedule you for a good 15-minute consultation. Now, I'm going to suggest, so that the time is spent as wisely as possible, that you would have already gone to that bit.ly/show my report link and have that handy and be ready to give the account manager your password. And that way we can automatically log on and we can see what's going on in real time and have a very substantive conversation as to what we can do for you today. That's really it, Curtis.
Wow, that's fantastic, folks. That was gold. You got some serious gold there. And then culminating with, the ability to get capital. Again, we want to borrow money to make money, not for stuff, but you want to get access to other people's money for real estate, for down payments, for, expanding your business, which can generate capital, and that new cash flow will pay the debt. But now you have the ability to create infinite returns using other people's money, So money is debt, and you definitely got to master this game of financing, and that was pure gold. Tell them you heard about it on the Practical Wealth Show. so Bruce knows we're sending people over there. But this is some great stuff, folks. I'll probably beat you to getting their complimentary consultation first, because I don't let people in front of you, but I know they're good. And so Bruce Mack is the real deal. And so again, when we post this, we'll have the links below. And so go there, get to your Bitly site. We'll put all that in the show notes. And I'm excited, folks. Thank you for listening. And Bruce, any other closing thoughts?
One closing thought again is, if you want to get on that consultation, please make sure that you put in the correct URL. That's www.platinumfinancing.group.com.
Yes.
Financing. That's not going to get you where you want to go. The other thing I want to say in closing is that I really appreciate the time to get on with you and take a really deep dive into what credit is all about, how to go out, how to get it, and of course to use it responsibly, because that's the key. And hopefully some of these points, you guys are going to take this to heart so that you can truly take your business to the next level, because I want you all to enjoy a true financial freedom, because that's where it's at.
Yeah, folks, make sure you reach out. I guarantee you, I've got a page of notes here, and I've learned at least probably 10 things I didn't know. And I thought I knew a little bit. So that was great stuff. So go out, take action, PlatinumFinancingGroup.com.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.